Most people are using ChatGPT and other AI tools all wrong. That's why it's easy to get ahead of 99% of them. I've spent over 17 years in tech, software, e-commerce, and marketing as a founder, CEO, and investor, building billions of dollars in values for businesses, including AI companies. And this is what I've noticed. The divide between people who know how to harness the power of AI and those who don't is getting wider every day. In this video, you'll get a 6-step blueprint to master what really matters in AI, like the top 1%. And you can do it in just 6 days, even if you're a total beginner. So the first and easiest thing to learn is text. Nowadays, even my parents are using ChatGPT, so they are familiar with generating text using AI. This is how these platforms really got popularized over the last couple of years, is their powerful abilities to generate text. And so you can do this with pretty much every AI tool now. So you could do it with ChatGPT, you could do it with Grok, you could do it with Claude, you could do it with Gemini. All of these tools allow you to generate text. And so that is the easiest way to get started. Now, what most people have found is it seems to be getting better, and it depends on how you prompt the stuff. But if you just wanted to generate complete bodies of text, complete emails, complete articles, it doesn't seem to work that great. You can tell the writing is generated by AI in most cases. Something is slightly off. And so where I find it to be most valuable is iterating on different ideas. And so one of the best ways I use it, still kind of text-based, is to generate ideas for product names or business names, or, because otherwise you have to sit down there forever and look at examples. But if you tell it, just generate me 50 of these, that's a great and easy way to get started. The same thing applies to generating things like headlines. So I use it in marketing. I've written all kinds of copy, driven hundreds of millions of dollars in sales with sales copy that I've written. And so I'm pretty good at copying. I read all the books. But when it comes to writing headlines, it's still a pain in the butt, and it's still kind of a volume game. And so I'll typically, and this is a big tip with AI, is to force yourself to do some thinking on your own first. But then I'll have AI generate headlines. And at first, it's going to be terrible. So the trick is to give it examples. You would think that with all the information it's absorbed from all of the resources out there, it would have all the examples you could ever possibly need. But it's still terrible at first. So what you want to do is give it examples and tell it to follow those examples exactly. Maybe only swap out a few words. And so I'll collect a document of like 50 different good advertising headlines. And I'll say, hey, this is my product. This is the page that I'm working on. This is the thing I want to advertise. I want you to generate me 30 good headlines. And if you just tell it to do that without giving any examples, they'll be very boring. They'll be very bland. It will not be very good. If you give it specific examples, it could be from a book, it could be from articles, it could be from ones that you like that you've seen online, the results are going to be 10 times better. So that's a key to making this work better for you. I do the same thing with bullets, same exact process. I found examples of really good sales bullets, which are applicable to selling almost anything. I give it specific examples with specific formats to follow, and it generates better content. And so that's how to get more out of these text-based AI tools. Also, a powerful way to use these to make them sound more like you without you having to write everything yourself is to give it written information, or even better, to speak to it and tell it to use your voice as closely as possible. And so there's a tool out there that I'm a big fan of called WhisperFlow. So WhisperFlow, it basically allows you to press and hold a button on your keyboard, and you can speak into the chat box of any AI tool just as long as you want. You can kind of ramble. It'll clean up some of that. And then you can send that over. And so that's a better way to kind of talk rather than have to type everything to these AI tools, ChatGPT or whatever else. Much more powerful way to use it. And so the way that I will use this is if there's something that I want to write, I'll basically hold that, I'll talk to it, I'll tell it exactly what I want. And then from there, I'll tell it to either clean this up or in my own words, as closely as possible, make this sound like me and generate whatever email or whatever piece of content that I wanted to produce. So these text-based AI tools are extremely powerful. So on day one, what I would recommend you do is to go use some of these tools. Go use ChatGPT, go use Gemini, Grok, Claude. To me, people will talk about like, oh, this one's like better than this one. To me, they're all pretty much the same. There may be one new release that comes out. One seems better on a text basis. To me, they're not that big of a difference. I tend to use ChatGPT because they were first and that's the one I got most comfortable with. The only time where I'll really jump to another tool is if I don't want it to necessarily have all the context of the first one. So what happens, depending on how you structure your account, it's gathering information from all your previous chats. And so it knows what you've asked, it knows what you've asked for. And a lot of times it'll end up kind of regurgitating stuff when you really want it to think more independently or to give you information that's not so biased based on what you had already asked for in the past. So sometimes I'll jump into a different platform just so it doesn't have so much history. That I find useful to do. But your homework for step number 1 is to just spend an hour or so going through these chat tools. Use it for something that you actually want to do work with, and then sort of hold it to a high standard. Imagine this is a junior person doing the role that you're trying to get it to accomplish. Make sure that it's that good or better. If not, you'll have to work on how you're prompting it. You can even ask it how to prompt itself to get better results. But that's step 1. Very basic. Most people now that are using any sort of AI are using the text-based platforms and text-based tools. And so I would start there and do that for at least an hour the first day. And honestly, once you do that, you'll know as much. People will talk about all their fancy prompting and all their ways that they're using these tools. If you do that for like an hour and you test out all 4 of those different tools, you'll know as much as 99% of other people that are using them for text applications. Step number 2 is images. And images I find incredibly powerful because I'm using them for parts of thumbnails, for images, for blog posts, and they're also great as starting points for videos. So videos is what we're going to talk about next. But having an image to start tends to get you a lot better results when producing videos. And so all these tools can do images. ChatGPT, Gemini, they can all do images. But the best tool right now is Nano Banana Pro. And so that's part of the Google suite. So you can actually access that through Google's Gemini chat tool. And so Nano Banana Pro produces incredible images. And so your workflow that you typically want to use is to go into a chat tool, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini, ask it to give you a starting prompt. Tell it kind of what you want. What are you looking to produce with this images? What kind of dimensions? What do you want in there? What kind of, do you want it to be a cartoon or realistic or have lifestyle stuff? And you basically ask it to give you a good image prompt. Then you can go pop that in to any tool in which you can access Nano Banana Pro, such as Gemini or any other tool that's sort of using their API. And then you can generate really good images. And what I found with this is that sometimes you have to generate 4, 5, 6 different images to really get what you want. Some things are harder than others. And then once you generate that image, if you want to start changing things. So for example, like I'll have a designer generate me a YouTube thumbnail, and then I may want to change like one word or 3 or 4 different words or something. Where I tend to get way better results is when I ask it to change one thing at a time. Just change this one word, and then it generates. And then I give that new version. Just change this one icon. I tend to get a lot better results doing that. And so that's the best tool out there to generate images. And I would recommend going out there for your day number 2 or step number 2, generate 5 or 6 different images with that tool. And you'll know as much as 99% of people when it comes to generating images with AI. There's a lot of tools in the past. Mid-Journey, people were using ChatGPT. And from what I've seen, none of those are really necessary now. It's all kind of consolidating down to the best absolute tools. I still think ChatGPT for text, Nano Banana Pro for images, and then that gives you all you need. You don't really have to mess around with a lot of these other tools. You can just to kind of see what they're like. But once you start generating some content with both of those, you'll understand text and images. Next, we move on to videos. And so the most powerful video tool right now is Google's VO. So VO is what we use to generate all of our videos. And so there's other tools out there. You could do some videos with other platforms such as Sora that was released by OpenAI. It's kind of interesting. It does some things really cool. But when it comes to really cranking these videos out for example, we use them in ads in our coffee business. And so our best performing Black Friday ad was this little squirrel video ad that I created. And took about 2 hours to clip the whole thing together because I generated, I think, 15 different clips or so, and then basically chopped them down into like 1-second little parts and put them together. That was our best performing video ad of Black Friday. That was all generated with clips from Google VO. And so that gives you everything you possibly need. This is another area in which there's 2 tips to get more out of generating these kind of videos. So the workflow is typically like this. Go to ChatGPT, have it generate you a starting image prompt, then use Nano Banana to generate that starting image, then plug that image into Google VO, and then from there, have it generate you the video. So it's not starting with something from scratch. And I typically have ChatGPT also generate me a video prompt as well. So you generate 2 prompts with ChatGPT, an image prompt and a video prompt. Generate your image with Nano Banana Pro, generate your video with Google Veo, and then you're going to have a lot better of a video. Even from there, you may have to iterate on the videos a few times. And what typically happens is they spit out clips that are maybe 8 seconds, but they'll have like half of it'll be fluff and you'll need to cut that down a little bit. And so this is literally how we're producing full ads, 100% AI for our $50 million e-commerce business. Is we're using this exact process and we're just combining, 5, 6, 7 different clips together. And that's it. It's super powerful. And you can do wild and crazy kind of videos that have never been possible before. So I would recommend generating, 3 or 4 different videos and try to produce something you could actually use, whether it's an ad for your business or a piece of content. That's going to make this way more real. Rather than just playing around with these tools, generating something you would actually use in the real world. So the next step is sound. This is another thing where there's been a lot of tools out there that could do this, but really the best one now is called 11 Labs. So with 11 Labs, you can generate music, such as background music for videos. You can generate sound effects, like we used one, for example, in the squirrel video, where there's a part where he's basically stuffing coffee away in all these places to kind of like load up for Black Friday. He closes this like safe. And so it closes that safe, and I generated that sound using 11 Labs. So you can generate those, and you can also generate voiceover. Because right now, and this is going to keep improving, is that it's going to be easier to produce a finished video if you take the VO clips and remove all the sound, and then add your own sound effects on top of thereafter. You can, and we have generated some videos that we just generated the sound and the voiceover and everything using Google Veo, but sometimes the voiceover is a little bit off, sometimes they say weird things, and so a lot of times it's easier to generate videos with no sound, and then add your own background music and sound effects and voiceover after using 11 Labs. And so this is another thing where I would recommend going through this process start to finish to generate an entire video, specifically an ad. If you own a business or you can advertise your friend's business or family's business, generate this whole process using these different tools. And that's how you're going to learn this stuff way faster. I also use ChatGPT to generate prompts for the sound clips. I'll say, hey, here's the kind of video I'm creating. Maybe I'll talk to it using whisper flow. And I'll say, this is the kind of video that I'm creating. I want you to tell me, what kind of sound should I use in this thing? I don't want to have to go overkill. I don't want to have to do a bunch of editing. I don't want to have 52 different sound effects. I'm not trying to produce a motion picture here. And so what sound effects should I have in here? What background music should I have in here? What's kind of the 80-20 with this? And it'll tell you, and it'll give you prompts. You'll go to 11 Labs, and you'll basically pop all those things in there, and then now you'll have sound effects, and then you just need to use some editor, such as CapCut, or I've used Camtasia, or Final Cut Pro. Any of these editor tools, if you were starting from scratch with no experience with that stuff, CapCut is probably going to be the way to go. It's got a lot of cool features and transitions, and it's fairly user-friendly. And so I would probably start there, and you're basically just combining all those things together to produce a finished video. Now, the next step is code. And so the most popular tool right now that everyone's talking about is Claude. I've used ChatGPT for this successfully. I've used Gemini for this successfully. I've also used Claude for this successfully. Any of those tools will allow you to produce code that you can use to either build entire software applications, or what I've used it more for is editing parts of my website. I remember when I was first building my e-commerce business, over a decade ago, 17 years ago or something. And I'd try to do the most mundane thing, edit some design or colors, and I'd have to go into the CSS, and I'd be researching online and looking at, articles. It was such a pain in the butt. Now you can literally just go ask ChatGPT and say, here's my problem. What do I need to do to fix this? And it'll give you a little snippet of code. You pop that into your store or your WordPress site or wherever, and it's so easy. It doesn't work 100% the first time, every time, but it's good enough. It saves you so much time and effort. And so if you want to go out there and build entire software applications, I have less experience doing that, but people are using, Gemini to do that. People are using Claude to do that. People are using software specific tools like Lovable. And so those tools can all help you build entire software applications if that's what you want to do. What I've found to be most useful is editing pieces of different applications from other providers. So I'm not trying to build something from scratch, but I'm trying to edit my WordPress store, my Kajabi application, any other sort of website that I would normally have to go out there and hire somebody from like Upwork or Fiverr or somewhere to help me edit this thing. You're able to do it on your own using these tools. And so the last application for you to master using these AI tools is thinking, which is kind of crazy because these started as just language models. They literally studied a bunch of language that kind of built, from my understanding, they built sort of prediction engines that basically said that if these words come first, what is the most likely next sequence of words? And that's kind of how these things have been structured. But a lot of people are using them for strategy, creativity, and some of the stuff is pretty impressive. And some of it is also, to me, slightly dangerous to our own ability to think, but to also producing good outcomes. The way I recommend you use these things for thinking is first, do the thinking on your own first. I think a huge advantage over the next 10 years is going to be people that can think without just going to AI first. Because I think a lot of people, it happened, with just online and social media and TV and all these technological advances over the past, 50 plus years, that people seem to be getting dumber. It used to be a given that people were getting smarter every single year. I believe it's called the Flynn effect. And they found out, not that long ago, one professor always used to cite this thing at the beginning of his presentations, at the beginning of the school year. And they wanted him to do this series again. And he ended up preparing. He's like, oh yeah, the Flynn effect, everyone gets smarter. He started looking at the data. He's like, people aren't getting smarter. They're actually getting dumber now. And I think this is actually going to accelerate with AI. So by all means, do your thinking first alone. If you're trying to come up with a strategy, a business idea, a product idea, something to move your life forward, pull out your notepad and pen and paper, talk to some people that are more successful, that have already done what you want to do that thinking first, and then use AI to complement that. Use it to iterate on what you've already come up with on your own. Use it to come up with more ideas, more creativity, expand the number of options that would just take you a long time to figure out on your own. And you can also use it to use proven models to pull information out of you. Because I found these tools to be incredible for generating text, for generating images, video, sound, code, all the things we've talked about. I found them to be absolutely terrible at helping make big decisions. I once years ago was like, I want you to tell me how to grow my social media following. All the advice I gave was wrong. And I once asked it, how would you grow sales of a $1 million e-commerce business? Basically, this is kind of a lot of what I've learned how to do and have helped other people do, growing these kind of 7-figure businesses to 8 figures. I asked it all this sort of advice. To me, it was all wrong. Like, I know this stuff from the real world that this doesn't actually work. It's just making stuff up. And so for coming up with bigger ideas or bigger strategy or bigger decisions, it's absolutely terrible. So use it to iterate on stuff you've already come up with, or you just want to expand the number of options. Perfect. You can also use it to pull information out of you. You can say, hey, I don't want you to tell me anything. I just want you to ask me a series of questions about this so I can think more deeply about this topic, is another valuable use of it. It's basically have, a partner there that's just asking you questions so you can think deeper about whatever it is you're trying to decide or learn. Another thing is that I found it useful to say, there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. So it's this proven model that really helps people sort through life issues, bad thinking patterns. And so you can say, hey, run me through the cognitive behavioral therapy model. Don't make anything up on your own. Just run this through from top to bottom and only ask me questions one at a time. I don't want you to give me any input. And that is another powerful tool because it can help you sort of rewire thinking patterns. You're not asking it to just make stuff up. You're just asking it to run like a therapist would through a series of questions in a process one by one. Those ways are powerful to use it. If you start offloading your thinking to AI, you're done. I think you're going to lose your ability to think better, and it's going to hurt you in the real world. So use these tools for what they're worth. Don't use them to replace the power of your own intelligence and the power of your own mind. Now that you have a game plan for mastering AI in 6 days, watch this video to discover how to build a business that runs itself with the power of AI.